What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. It's me. Yes, we're back. Solo live streams once again. Do you know why I was a little bit late? I was 3 minutes late just because I was watching Fleck. I was watching Fleck on Sky Sports. Once again, he's on Sky. And then I you know what it is? I didn't leave myself enough time. You know, when you're just about to start, you're ready, you set up and you go, I'll just make sure the telly's on so I can see Flex over there and all that kind of stuff. And then I turned on the TV and suddenly get all this. It's time to update your television. And you go, I don't know what to do with the TV. My TV, I think I've been sold a dud as well. I don't like it already. It's a disgrace. It's a cheat. But how's everybody doing? We're all doing good. It's Thursday, August the 24th. We're back for another edition of the Transfer View and the transfer news. You know. I was thinking this yesterday, guys, that what started off, and I don't want to be all doom and gloom this morning, I really don't, but what started off as a somewhat, okay window, get a couple of players in, negotiation, the prices were okay, and then it's just about selling players. It's turning into a disaster. It really is. When you look at not being able to move players on, when you look at just everything that's happened in the last 7 days, which some of the stories we're going to be talking about today as well. Andre Onana, he's going to be called up to the Cameroon squad, which means AFCON's in January. He's probably going to be missing in January. Two other signings at the moment, are missing. Mason Mount's injured. Rasmus Højlund is still unavailable. It's just, oh my God. It really is. It's one of those. It kind of dawned on me yesterday when I went, my God, this isn't going well, basically. It's not. Anyway, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. We're going to be doing a bit of a takeover discussion to start things off, because after the Neil Custis article we spoke about yesterday, and we were skeptical about Flex and myself, and it's funny because when we were being skeptical yesterday, and if you're not familiar, Neil Custis did an article a few nights ago, which basically said there was going to be a Qatar takeover. It was going to be done by October. There was going to be an announcement maybe next month, and that was it. It was done. Basically, they were doing the final due diligence, but it was done. And when that story came out, and we discussed it yesterday morning, I think rightfully so, Flex and myself were pretty skeptical when it comes to it. And pretty much like, I feel like we've heard this before. I feel like the same article has been done like 10 million times. I feel like I've been sat here and done the whole, well, they're saying it's going to be next week. I mean, KG, it's the joke at this point, isn't it? Thursday. Thursday. It's basically, that might as well have been the article. Neil Custis, Thursday. Because that's, and how many times have we done it? And we said yesterday, I'm not going to get too carried away. We know what's going to happen. Later on today, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 people coming out, or journalists coming out and saying, nothing's changed. And guess what? Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed about it. So there was a bit more detail surrounding the whole process, what the feeling is internally at Manchester United as well. So we chatted about that this morning. We're going to be talking a bit about Ten Hag wanting another midfielder. I mean, who doesn't, particularly with what's going on right now, but how the Mason Mount injury does affect things when it comes to possible departures to facilitate that extra midfielder coming in. Also going to be chatting about a friendly defeat, a behind closed doors friendly that took place against Burnley yesterday, in which United were soundly defeated, and a bit of conflicting information as to who was involved in that as well. So we'll be chatting about that. As I mentioned, Andre Onana seemingly is going to be making a return to international football, which isn't good news for United come January when AFCON takes place. And Eric Bailly, the latest on his future too. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. We've already got over or nearly 750 people watching. Let's see if we can get the likes up straight away. Let's start off talking about the takeover situation. Now, as I mentioned, there was reports that came out a couple of days ago from Neil Custis saying that this Qatari takeover was going to be complete by October and an announcement was going to be coming next month. Not the case. Mike Keegan did a live chat with Mail Sport yesterday and said, from what I've heard, nothing's changed at all. Kaveh Solokol did the same. He went on Sky Sports and said, from what he's heard, nothing really has changed that much. He also wrote a really in-depth article about this, which I want to go through here because I think it's really interesting. So he has said that Sheikh Jassim, I could do the whole article. Given how long this article is, I could do the Kaveh impression and stretch it out an hour. I really think I could. Sheikh Jassim still wants to buy Manchester United, and his £5 billion offer remains on the table. I'm not going to do the whole thing. It would be ridiculous. But that's the point he's making, is that the offer is still there. It remains on the table. He still wants to buy United, but nothing's really happened since then. He continues by saying, sources close to the Qatari bid believe the process has stalled amid concerns the Glazer family are not sure they want to sell. Sheikh Jassim has made 5 bids. 5.
Tell me he didn't just say that.
5 bids to buy Manchester United, despite being a 3-round process, making his final offer to buy 100% of the club in a debt-free deal 11 weeks ago on June 7. That's when the last bid went in, 11 weeks ago. When I saw that this morning, when I was reading through this before I went live, I went, that was 11 weeks ago. And I don't know if that was at the time. I think it might have been at the time where, you know, Rio Ferdinand was standing on the platform, the company at Company's House was created, and then you had Reuters come out, and then we got into the territory, which I've seen this a lot, and I've experienced this actually recently, which is journalists come out and say, well, this is the information I've got, and then people start attacking them for that information. You don't know what you're talking about. I'll believe this person, okay? Don't. I believe him over you. And then when nothing happens, they go very quiet about it all, because as a lot of these people have been saying the whole time, nothing's changing. And I get it. We want to hear that something's happened. We want to hear that there's progress. We want to hear that there's developments. But there just isn't. There just isn't any developments on it. That was 11 weeks ago. He put his final bid in, or his last bid in. Nothing's happened since then. Now, in addition, it's not just Sheikh Jassim's offer on the table. British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe has made rival bids to buy 69% of the club owned by the Glazer family in a phased takeover. Now, as David Hellier said, it was stressed that one, while the offer is still there and Ineos / Jim Ratcliffe haven't been told, you're out the race, we're not going to accept it, there's been internal discussions that we're not going to accept it because there's threats of litigation, there's threats of lawsuits. The minority shareholders have said, if you accept that, we're going to, we believe there's precedent in Cayman Island laws to bring a lawsuit to you and the club and all that kind of stuff. Basically, we're not going to allow it. Now, Sheikh Jassim's bid team, according to Kaveh, are aware of reports he is close to buying Manchester United, but as far as he is concerned, the situation has not changed, which is what we said yesterday. Sheikh Jassim is not going away, but ultimately, it is up to the Glazers to decide if they actually want to sell the club. The longer the process drags on, the more it costs bidders, as they will have to pay bankers, advisors and lawyers. However, the bidders are ready to move quickly if the Glazers decide to sell. As far as transfers are concerned, and this is kind of the new wrinkle to this is kind of the new information again, that stuff we already knew, and we had already predicted yesterday that nothing's really changed all that much. But hypothetically, let's go into the hypothetical world about this. Had there been a Qatari takeover, or frankly, I guess an Ineos takeover, but had there been a Qatari takeover, what would have been different this summer? Would there have been any difference in terms of how we operate in the transfer market? Would there have been any difference in how we handled other aspects of things that have gone wrong this summer? Well, as far as transfers are concerned, as I mentioned, Kaveh says that the Qatari bid has never identified any targets or talked about potential signings because their focus has been solely on actually buying Manchester United. But Kaveh says the window would have been different for United if the club had been sold and still can be in the future. Sheikh Jassim remains committed to wiping out United's debts, investing in infrastructure, the men's and women's team and the academy. But this is quite interesting too, is that senior figures in the football department at United are in the dark about what's happening with the takeover. They would welcome a conclusion to the process as soon as possible, and the Qatari bid has support within the club, which again is kind of new information really with this part here, that people within the football department at United, they still have no idea. They don't know what's going on, you know, and because realistically they shouldn't really they won't have access to that kind of information, really. They're not really privy to it. It's like I've been in working in organizations when there have been situations or aspects of the organization that have been sold off, or brands within the organization that have been sold off, or acquisitions happening and stuff like that. And you tend just to find out when they're done. You tend just to get something of, even before it's officially announced, oh yeah, it's done. But sometimes you even find out on the email. I've got an email. Who's it from? Corporate. Oh, this has happened. Great. You don't really, you're not really tend to know or anything like that. But I suppose what they're really talking about is just even there's no sort of scuttlebutt around it. What's going on with the takeover stuff? I don't know. I don't know at all. And of course they would welcome a conclusion to the process, because then they can move on. Some people might be concerned about the whole takeover process, because for some it could mean they lose their job. It's always a case of whenever any kind of takeover happens or any kind of acquisition happens, people like to bring their own people in. I think people like Richard Arnold, of course there's so much pressure on him at the moment, deservedly so, after everything that's happened over the last few weeks. I think he and John Murtough, they'd be naive to think that whoever comes in, whether it's Sheikh Jassim, whether it's Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I think they'd be naive to think that they're going to be sticking around in a post-takeover Manchester United, if indeed that does happen. Because one, you always bring in your own people, and two, you would look at the work that they have done in their time in the organisation, their time in the football club, and say, has it been good, or can we get better? They'll always try and get better. So I think it's interesting, certainly, that there's Qatari support within the club, but I think probably that support might just come from just get it done. And, people that work there are probably Man United fans too, right? So that's quite interesting as well. This was fascinating too. So Carve and Sky have actually laid out a timeline of this takeover process, and it felt like, honestly, I was having flashbacks as I was going through all of this. Because bear in mind, even if Neil Custis' report was accurate, and it doesn't look like it is, that this Qatari takeover was going to happen come October, it'd be nearly a year since the announcement that the Glazers said they were exploring strategic alternatives. That would have been nearly a year. Just look at this. November 22nd, 2022. The Glazers confirm they are open to a sale, but other options, including new investment, will be considered. February 17, 2023. So Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani make rival bids for Manchester United takeover. Qatari wants 100% to the club. The next day, US hedge fund Elliott Management lodged a proposal for investment in United. February 28, 2020. Back in February, Glazers split on sale after bids failed to meet £6 billion valuation. That was back in Feb, right? We're nearly at the end of August at this point. March, Sheikh Jassim and Ratcliffe make it through to the next stage of the process along with an unnamed bidder. March 10, Elliott Management make it through to the second stage of the sale process. March 16 and 17, Qatari Group and Sir Jim Ratcliffe meet Rain Group at Old Trafford. Before being given access to detailed financial information, Sheikh Jassim stays away. March 22, 2023, Rain extend deadline for second bids after request from Sheikh Jassim and Ratcliffe. Elliott Management did make minority stake offer before soft deadline. March 23, Ratcliffe makes second bid. March 24, Sheikh Jassim makes his second bid. April 11, the Glazers take the sale process to a third round with interested parties asked to submit final offers by the end of April. April 28, Sheikh Jassim makes world record bid value in Manchester United. Ratcliffe also makes his offer before the deadline. That was at the end of April. May 16, 2023, Sheikh Jassim goes in with a fourth bid, close to £5 billion. Ineos proposal values Man United at a higher price, but is not for the whole club and would give the Glazers chance to keep 20% stake. June 7, Sheikh Jassim submits a fifth improved bid. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And I think it goes down to, do actually the Glazers want to sell? And the belief is, seemingly, from the Qatari point of view, and I don't blame them, honestly, is that, well, the longer this goes on, the longer I have my doubts. Because if they wanted to sell, it'd be sold at this point. And I think, what the Glazers have almost done now, they've almost got themselves into a situation where maybe they would want to stick around, or maybe they can see the money coming into football. They can see, how much money's being pumped in by the Saudi PIF when it comes to, obviously, the Saudi Pro League, signing players, possible talks of Saudi involvement in the Champions League. The Champions League's being revamped next season. The Club World Cup's being revamped. Obviously, international competitions like the World Cup's being expanded, etc., etc. Television rights fees are being renewed in a couple of years' time. Most likely it will go completely to a streaming situation from the Premier League, where they'll have their own platform. There'll be more money in that. So the Glazers are looking at it going, we can make more money. We can make more money in maybe 3 or 4 years. We want £6 billion now, and none of these bids are £6 billion. They reckon that's part of the problem too, is that Sheikh Jassim hasn't paid £6 billion. His total pledge is £6 billion because it's £5 billion for United, £1 billion for everything that needs to be done, because there's a lot that needs to be done. We know that Sir Jim Ratcliffe just can't afford £6 billion. This is not going to happen. So they're like, oh, well, we haven't had our asking price met, and we think we can get more in a few years' time. The problem with that is one, there needs to be a lot done now, and I even think a minority investor doesn't cover that. It only covers one aspect of it. And two, as I've said before, they can't dangle that carrot. You know what I mean? They can't dangle that carrot and then be like, no, we've changed our mind. Can you imagine the outroar? And I know they don't care. And I know they don't care about, you know, fan response and fan reaction or anything like that. But I think there'll be a limit. You know, because if you think everything that's happened up to this point is bad, could you imagine if they go, no, we're staying because we think it's for the best interest of the club or the best interest of the business? It'd be, I can't even begin to describe what it would be. And they've been told that too. Like, you can't do it. You've already made your bed, so you've got to lie in it at this point. And I saw Mike Keegan did say yesterday in his live chat he did with Mail Sport, is he said that, well, none of the bids match the valuation that the Glazers are looking for. This is where Rain are acting almost as brokers in this and are trying to bridge that gap. And I think what that means, I think realistically what that means is going up to Sheikh Jassim or even Jim Ratcliffe, but mostly Sheikh Jassim, because they know he's got the money. Don't forget that too. They know he's got £6 billion if he wanted to do it. And it's Rain going up to him and going, come on, can you just put a bit more in. But from his perspective, he's like, I've done how many bids at this point? 5 or 6 bids, you know, and they don't want to have the mick taken out of them as well. So it's interesting to know that the staff want some resolution to all this nonsense. Like us fans want some resolution to this nonsense, but just in response to obviously that Neil Custis article the other day. When some things look like they're too good to be true, a lot of the time it is, unfortunately. And we have done this 10 million times over the last year, over the last 12 months, because people forget too, whilst the club was officially put up for sale in November with that statement, it was, I think, just over a year ago now, when Jim Ratcliffe first came out, or certainly someone from, I think a spokesperson from Ineos first came out to say that they would be interested in purchasing United, but the club weren't for sale. That was a year ago. So we've been doing this song and dance for a year about the Glazers possibly being open to selling. And realistically, are we any closer to a resolution at this point? There's been bids put in. You know, that's about it. And it's very frustrating. Very, very. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. How many likes are we currently on at the moment? We're currently at over 1,300 people watching. Only 173 likes. So if you haven't already, I know what it's like. Sometimes it's early. You forget. Or you just go, you know, whatever. So there you go. C-Max says, talk about transfers. That's what I'm going to do. You can see them all down here. You don't have to get angry. You know, it's just, you can calm down. I mean, I didn't see a please, C-Mac. Well, very rude. Very, very rude. Let's move on and talk about midfielders. C-Mac's going to be happy now because we're talking about transfers, so it's okay. You can have your Weetabix and you can settle. You can settle. It's okay. It's fine. It's not a problem. What are some people saying in the chat as well? Tavislol says, like, share, subscribe, and join the members club. Indeed. Remember to subscribe to United View Clips as well. Links in the chat. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat too. You get some of the most famous clips from United View across our short existence. Quite a few going up there actually now. People had asked for it. The Flex Spinneroonie is on there. What other famous ones are on there as well? There's KG meeting Facundo's dad. That's on there. I've definitely seen that. Oh, there's Flex and KG doing a penalty shootout on tour last year. There's Bruno Fernandes assisting KG a piece of chicken as well from the tour last year. Because there might be some new subscribers that haven't even seen any of that stuff. People might not have ever seen that. They might have only recently discovered United View. So that is a really good way to go back and look at some of those moments that you may have missed in the past. So it's excellent. Prod says, Owen, can you talk about the state of Parliament? Well, I'm talking about transfers now, you know, and Palmeiras didn't say please either, you know, as Joe Blackman said. Manners don't cost a thing. Exactly. Ian says, talk about the sale, please. Well, he said please, so maybe Ian wins that one. I don't know. Anyway, we're talking about midfielders. We're talking about midfielders here because Ten Hag wants another midfielder, but he might not get one. According to the Telegraph, Eric Ten Hag is hoping these early shows, man. Ten Hag is hoping to sign another midfielder before the transfer window closes, but Mason Mount's injury could complicate any plans to sell Scott McTominay. It was basically said that actually McTominay, if we were going to get a midfielder, we'd have to sell Donny or McTominay. Donny, that one's gone a bit quiet, honestly. But when it comes to Mason Mount, his injury, he's not going to be playing, of course, against Nottingham Forest on Saturday. He's not going to be playing against Arsenal the following Sunday. And he's going to be out until they think once the international break's over. The Telegraph is actually reporting that Mason Mount is set to be sidelined for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Now, the person that everyone clearly wants is Sofian Amrabat, and things have kind of changed with his status recently too. The Fiorentina manager has confirmed that Amrabat is training on his own. He said, quote, Amrabat is training on his own. He won't travel with us for the next game, seemingly to kind of force through a move to, I guess, Man United, the club he's been waiting for all summer. It was also reported yesterday too by Corriere dello Sport, pronunciation, Owen, in Italy, suggesting that Fiorentina have lowered their asking price for Sofian Amrabat to £21 million. So let's get this straight. This guy's asking price has been dropped, what, twice now? At one point, it was like £30 million. I think then it was £25 million. Now it's £21 million. We've got a situation here, folks, yeah? You've got a guy who desperately wants to move to Manchester United. He really, 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 really wants to move. He's turned down other proposals from West Ham, from Saudi clubs, all that kind of stuff. He's turned it down. Reportedly, even Liverpool were like, oh, what's going on? I only want to move to Manchester United. He's now training on his own. I'm training on my own because I didn't want anything to happen. I don't want to be involved. I'm leaving. In addition to that now, the price has been dropped to £21 million. And as Samuel Lucas said the other day in his article, when he asked someone about Amrabat during the tour, they scrunched his face. I don't know. And it just goes back to United's inability to sell players. United's inability to raise funds. And I don't understand, what I don't understand with this, the raising funds aspect, because we were always told that, right? We were told you get Mount, you get Onana, you get Højlund, and then you got to sell players. And you go, okay, but they're struggling to sell players because I guess their contracts are too big or people don't want to match the valuation for players. But surely you would have known that going in. If you know we've got to sell players this summer, why wouldn't you have conversations earlier with the players you need to sell, with the players you want to sell, to make sure, hey, you're definitely leaving, right? Yeah, you're leaving. A bit like they did with Fred. Remember Fabrizio Romano said, Fred is 100% leaving. He is leaving 100%. And he did. He left. And these other players, whether it is Maguire, whether it is McTominay, and don't get me wrong, I know I was on here with McTominay saying, well, you know, you got to get fair value for money, and I still believe that. But you look at the Maguire situation, that fell apart because they couldn't agree on a payoff. Why wouldn't you have that discussion with him way in advance? Way in advance. When you sit Harry Maguire down and you say, we're stripping you of the captaincy and we think it'd be better if you leave. Now, as we're talking about you leaving, what would it take for you to leave? Why don't you start there? Why not? Donny van de Beek. I mean, he wasn't in the squad against Spurs. Ten Hag said, you know, that's because, you know, his mind's kind of elsewhere because looking for a move. But even that, it was, where was he going? Sociedad, that was permanent. Then it was a loan. Then it wasn't happening. I mean, now it's gone really quiet with him about where he could be going. I know that Ajax have basically agreed something with West Ham now for Kudus, so maybe they've got money. So maybe it could be a situation where Ajax go for Donny. I hope. I really hope so. And it's just, as I said at the beginning of the show, that I kind of was sitting there yesterday and I just thought, what a disaster this is turning out to be for United. And we shouldn't be shocked. Shame on us for actually believe that we were going to be operating differently than United operates. Because I looked at the last 7 days of what has happened with United. We've made 3 signings this summer. 2 of them are unavailable right now. Mount's injured. Højlund, we knew about his injury, but we found that out during the medical as well. So when we were initially buying him, we didn't think we thought he was going to be ready straight away. So 2 of the 3 aren't available. The third, come January, isn't going to be available too. We'll talk about that in just a second. We sold Fred. We sold Alanga. Who else have we sold? We've sold like Zidane Iqbal or Emran for like less than $1 million a piece. We sold Tellez for like 4 million. Some people, rightfully so, say, well, Alanga went for 15, and we sold Kovar, I think, for 7 as well. Doesn't that cover the Amrabat fee? Apparently not. Apparently not. And the rest of the players we can't sell. Why can't we sell them? Because their contracts are so high. They really are. The Savage Fitness Academy says, Owen, you encouraged it to BH. Referring to what? Referring to what? I'm not sure what I encourage. Maybe what? They're saying that about McTominay. I still do believe getting the right price. Don't get me wrong there. I still don't believe that you sell Scott McTominay for 10 million or anything like that. What I say is do that stuff earlier. Have those discussions earlier. Sort that out earlier. And United didn't. And now they're at this situation where, let's be honest, if we get a midfielder in, at this point, no, legitimately, at this point, if we get Amrabat in, I'd actually be a bit surprised. I don't think it's going to happen now. I really don't. I'll put a poll in the chat. Do you think Amrabat goes to United, or do you think United sign Amrabat? There we go. United sign Amrabat. Poll is in the chats, and part of the problem is we are dealing with the sins of the past. I posted yesterday on social media. You look at some of the contracts of the players that were trying to sell this summer. Brandon Williams, who he's in talks with Ipswich for a loan with an option to buy, 65 grand a week, 65k a week to a championship side. Again, ridiculous contract. Eric Bailly, we're going to talk a bit later on about him. He's on 80k a week. Dean Henderson looks like he's going to be going to Crystal Palace. He's on 100k a week. 100. Even Donny, he's on 120k a week. So when he's having these discussions with Sociedad, or when he's having these discussions with possibly teams in Italy or even Ajax, it's like, well, we can't give you that, mate. We definitely can't. So United, you're going to have to bridge that gap, honestly. 120k. Harry Maguire, he's on 190k a week. And, in that situation, I see he wanted something like, they said £7 million. Some have said £12 million, all that kind of stuff to get a payoff, because he's on a ridiculous contract. Even Anthony Martial, when there's been talks about him, is he going to go this year? Where's he going to go? He'd have to go to Saudi. Why? Because he's on 250k a week. His wages are huge. Then you got Jadon Sancho, which earlier on it was like, should we sell Sancho if we got a good offer for him this summer? No offers came in. Well, realistically, no offers come in because he's on 350 grand a week. That is an astronomical amount of money. So whenever any of these clubs inquire and they come in and go, hey, we're interested in picking up Donny, they go, what's he currently on? 120k a week. Well, that's what we're going to have to figure something out there, aren't we, Man United? Are you going to help us out with that one, or what we're going to do? Because that's a lot. That's a ridiculous amount of money. And it goes back to the Woodward era of inflated contracts for players that don't reflect ability, and it makes it difficult. And also, the staple of the Woodward era is not only inflated contracts, but then just giving them out for no reason whilst they're at the club. I remember doing the stream. I was on United Stand at the time. And when they gave Eric Bailly a new contract, everyone went, what? Why? He wasn't even playing that much then. And just these huge, huge wages. And then we wonder, and we go, I find it really difficult to sell players. Well, obviously. Obviously, because when any club comes in, they go, one, we're going to have a low transfer fee, because if we're going to pick up those wages, or if we're going to try and bridge that gap, we're going to have to give them a big signing on bonus. So we can't give you all that amount of money. So that's why we're terrible at selling players for high fees. And also, in a day and age where the player, once they've got a piece of paper in front of them, once they've got a contract that's signed, they've got all the power. There is no obligation from their point of view to have to leave, unless they want to go and prove themselves, unless they want to go try something different, unless they, just desperate to play football. But when they've got that amount of money in front of them, sometimes they're like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not. And again, it's dumb. I think it's so dumb. And now we're in a situation where we can't sell players and we can't bring in players because we've still got these people on a wage bill that's absolutely out of control. It's ridiculous. It really, really is. A couple of super chats here. Craig says, Fred Analanga fee covers the Amrabat fee. And Leo says, with Mount's injury, we have to get someone now. But this is what's funny too, with the Mount injury too, is that from some reports, they're suggesting that the Mount injury might actually prevent United from getting someone, because they have to play McTominay, and therefore we can't sell him because we don't trust ourselves to get someone in time. I mean, even the excuse, I remember with the Maguire one, when that Romano said it, and was it Ornstein, and all of these journalists had clearly been told something by people close to Maguire, or maybe even United themselves. And this whole point about it was very difficult. We decided, not to let him go in the end because we couldn't get a replacement in time. I mean, come on.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
That was and it was 2 weeks left of the window, or we don't think we can actually get people in time.
Bullshit.
What a lie. What an absolute lie. Let's call it for what it was. Harry Maguire didn't go to West Ham because he couldn't get the payoff that he was looking for. That's it. The payoff number itself has been disputed, but he didn't want. If he didn't get that payoff, he wasn't going to go. Which again, his prerogative. You can't force him to go. You can't. And if United weren't willing to pay it, then again, that's sins of the past. That's on Manchester United. But let's not pretend we just didn't think, and we're happy that Maguire's here. Well, you're not happy Maguire's here, clearly. Same with McTominay with the weekend. Gary Neville mentioned it on commentary. McTominay didn't come on. I mean, it was almost a game for him to come on. You needed something extra in the midfield. Ten Hag didn't want to go near it because clearly he wants to sell him. And again, you have a real strong look at John Murtough and the sort of transfer department, negotiations department, and you go, this is really where you're earning your money. Actually, we mentioned before about being agile, about being creative. You're seeing other clubs at this point, because I'm not even using FFP as an excuse anymore, because I'm seeing other clubs that are having issues with FFP, or they've spent their amount this summer. They're still bringing players in. How are they bringing players in? Loan to buy. Be creative. Find something else. Find another way to bring players in. Look at Arsenal. They didn't need to bring another goalkeeper in. They got Ramsdale in goal. We want to get David Raya. We can't really do that from an FFP point of view. Let's do a loan with an obligation to buy. We'll figure it out. We'll negotiate. Heaven forbid we'll negotiate. And again, you look at United, you go, you're going to figure something out creative? Oh no. It's just ridiculous. Show Ramen says in the chat, one of our members, I'm sick of calling out the manager when nothing ever changes at the club. Van Gaal, Jose and Ollie were let down by the club, and the same is now happening with Eric. Stop calling out the managers. Well, I think when it comes to this, and I'm not sure if that was directed to me or people in the chat or just in general, I think Ten Hag, as I mentioned at the weekend, I think he does deserve, or as he is allowed criticism for some of the decisions he was making on Saturday in particular, when it comes to personnel that he had. Moving Bruno to the right, Rashford through the middle, Sancho on the left, despite all pre-season playing through the middle or anything like that. But I do agree with you. I think we've seen this before, haven't we? We've seen this. We've seen this story play out several times. We've seen a manager do well, or a manager look like things are going to be in place, and then we think it's going to kick on. I mean, when you look at what Eric Ten Hag achieved last season, again, you have to take a step back and say, I saw the graphic the other day, I think the BBC put it out there, that was, he's got like the second most amount of points for the games played he's got in the Premier League behind Pep Guardiola at this time in his career. and he won a trophy. He got to a cup final. He finished third in the Premier League. He didn't have a striker last season. And the fact that we find ourselves in the third game of this new season, still without a striker, we've got less midfielders now than we had at the end of last season, is staggering. I mean, it really is absolutely staggering, the situation we find ourselves in at the moment. It's nuts. And I do agree with you. It's yet another manager having to make chicken salad out of chicken shit, as they say. And you feel bad for him. You really do. We've got over 1,500 people watching. We've still on around 200 or so likes, or nearly up 300. See if we can get it up to 500. Let's move on and talk about this friendly. Oh, it's not. What's happened here? My friend, my text box isn't there. What a disgrace and a cheat. Look at that. Wow. You know, that's good. Well, it makes me wonder, did I fix all the other ones? I did fix the other ones. It was just that one I didn't fix. Well, that's on me. That's a disgrace and a cheat. Accountability, Owen. Anyway, there was a friendly yesterday, behind closed doors match at Carrington. And reportedly, the likes of Johnny Evans, Hannibal, Alvaro Fernandez, Scott McTominay, Martial, Donny van der Beek, and Facundo Palestri were all involved. They all started. And we lost 3-0. 3-0. They lost to Burnley yesterday at Carrington. Now, according to Samuel Lucas from the Manchester Evening News, he says 8 of the 15 players involved for Manchester United in the behind-closed-doors friendly against Burnley yesterday had never played for the first team previously, and they found life tough in the 3-0 loss, which I felt a bit odd, because how many players did the initial report name? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're basically saying the rest of the squad had never played for United before, and they found life tough in a 3-0 loss. It doesn't look good, does it? It doesn't look good. Friendlies are friendlies, so it doesn't matter, and Ten Hag clearly wanted to do it for fitness. It says here in this Manchester Evening News report, as I mentioned, that 8 of the 15 involved for United had never played for the first team previously. They found life tough against a strong Burnley 11, with Vincent Kompany using 22 players in a split side, with his strongest 11 playing the first half before wholesale changes at the break. The game against the top flight newcomers was arranged to maintain fitness levels for first team players who haven't started the Premier League matches against Wolves and Tottenham. So that is something that people were saying, is that our fitness levels somehow look way off, and we already looked really, really fatigued or anything like that. But it definitely did feel a bit damage control-ish, didn't it? You know, that we lost 3-0, Premier League newcomers. I understand it's a friendly. I understand it's not the proper first teamers or anything like that. But there are some players that have been, there have been some players in that you would think would do better, and when you come out afterwards and you go, no, it was just a situation. It was just a situation that, you know, it was mainly fitless, and a lot of the people hadn't actually really played that much, so it wasn't really a big deal. But I think rightfully so, United fans look at it and go, look, we beat Wolves, we didn't play well. We lost to Spurs. Second half performance was terrible. We played Burnley behind closed doors, and if reports had come out, we won that 2-0, you go, okay, cool. But then when you look 3-0, convincingly, and some of the people involved were senior people, McTominay, Martial, Donny, Facundo, you go, what's going on? What is going on? And it just, I don't really know what to take from it all that much, honestly, because I suppose you can't take too much. It was just, again, and in terms of the list of things going on, as I mentioned, whether it's 2 of the 3 signings being injured, obviously everything that's happened regarding Richard Arnold, Greenwood investigation in the last 7 days, the defeat against Spurs, behind closed scenes defeat as well, it's just like, when it rained, it doesn't rain, but when it rains, it pours. That's what it feels like with United at the moment. And yeah, I guess that's just, it's not, you can read into it what you want. Take from it what you will, the defeat. But, yeah, they're meant to be the people that are sort of coming into the side and making the difference as well. 3-0 against Burnley. Oh, my goodness. The poll that was in the chat at the moment, it's been in there for 11 minutes. It's got nearly 500 votes. And the question was, do you think United sign Amrabat? And it's quite close, actually. Still, the majority just are saying yes. 53% are saying yes. 47% are saying no. They don't think so. And to be honest, today, the way I've woken up, I'm leaning towards the no. I mean, unless we get some news, Donny's definitely going. But we've heard players are definitely going this summer, and they're still here. So I don't know if I have a lot of faith that some of these players are going to be going as well. So I wouldn't be shocked. Frankly, I'm waiting for someone to hijack that deal at this point. I'm still waiting for Liverpool to come in. I'm still waiting for Amrabat to sort of put his hands up eventually and just go, well, enough's enough. I've waited for so long. I mean, when did they agree personal terms? It's like May or something, maybe. And we're, again, nearly at the end of August. Transfer window's closing, you know. And it's wild that we're at a situation where it's 21 million. It's not even that much. And still it's like, you know, we'll see. We'll see. My goodness me, we'll see. Let's talk about, as the news gets even more positive, Andre Onana is returning to the Cameroon squad. Oh, when I saw this yesterday, guys, honestly, I was like, what? I pressed all the buttons.
Bloody hell.
What is going on here?
So, it was reported yesterday by Actu Foot Afrique, and also a journalist actually based in Cameroon. So it looks like this one is very much accurate. Andre Onana is expected to return to the Cameroon national team in September, following his falling out with manager Rigobert Song at the 2022 World Cup. Of course, famously or infamously, depending how you look at it, I think he played, was it one game or something like that? Maybe a couple of games. And they had a big falling out. By all accounts, the manager didn't want Andre Onana essentially to be Andre Onana and play how he plays, which is obviously playing with the ball at his feet, coming out from the back, high position, distribution. Basically, the reason we signed Andre Onana. There was a falling out about that, and he said, I'm off, I'm going home. And he retired. So when we signed him this summer, we were going, and the best thing is too, is he's retired from international football. So we don't have to worry about him going away in January to AFCON because he's fallen out with the Cameroon squad. Brilliant. Well, looks like he's going to return, and AFCON 2023 commences on the 13th of January 2024. So if indeed Andre Onana does get called up and has mended fences and all that kind of stuff, then there's a high chance we miss out of Andre Onana through January. And I saw this yesterday and I just went, oh. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna begrudge anyone for playing for their country, certainly in a continental tournament or anything like that, because I thought I was super disrespectful. I think it was the last AFCON tournament that was on, when there were some people that were being interviewed by these people, and they would say, so are you gonna go to AFCON? Of course I am. Of course I'm gonna go represent my country. What kind of question is that? Like, you wouldn't say that to someone when it comes to the Euros or anything like that. You're gonna play for England at the Euros? Yeah, of course I am. But it goes back to the issue that we're discussing here, which is planning. Planning. Why? In the conversations with Andre Onana, was this subject ever broached with him? Hey, we know you're not playing, you're retired from international football, but have you had any conversations about going back? What's the latest with that? Yeah, are you considering going back? What are your thoughts? What's the status on that? And if he said, you know, I'd be open to going back, or I haven't spoken, or, because to be honest, he only signed for us, a few weeks ago. So if he's going to get caught up in September, there must have been those talks. There must have been those conversations about it. So if there were, why do you then go and sell Takeover? This is my point the whole time. I don't know how many times I've said this throughout this summer, and I know we're getting the goalkeeper from Fenerbahce, but we had one. Takeover, he was there. We saw him in pre-season. Last season, when he was in Prague, he won the league. He did very, very well. He wouldn't get a move to a club like Leverkusen that's got Xabi Alonso there if he wasn't half decent. And you could say to Takeover, and I know Takeover was like, I want first team football. You could say to him, hey, Onana's going in January, and we don't know how long he'll be gone for, at least several weeks. Why? Stick around. We'll play you in the cup matches. Let's work something out here. We'll play you in every Carabao Cup match. We'll even play you in FA Cup matches or something like that. And then, come January, you're playing goal for the first team. And we know how Erik ten Hag is. Look, if you play well, keep your spot. I don't care if we've just signed him for all this money. If you play well and we're winning, no problem. But that would require a little bit of planning. a little bit of intelligence. And then the money that we're spending on getting the other keeper from Fenerbahce, which isn't a lot, it's like £5 million pounds, £6 million, something like that. Guess what? We could put that money into the war kitty, as KG likes to say, to get Amrabat, because he's only costing 21 million. And I know we're scraping the pennies together, but it'd be good to have an extra 6 million quid to go get Amrabat, as we're adding up all the money we have or don't have, or squeezing out that last bit of credit on the credit card. I mean, what is going on? Like, I mean, what is going on? I just don't. I mean, literally, the time button again.
What is going on here?
I don't understand. I just don't. I really don't. It's ridiculous. Ronald Jacobs says, I mean, that was proper give up side, that. Ronald Jacobs says, how can you say Erik ten Hag is not at fault for this transfer window? He got his priorities wrong, Onana and Højlund, I understand, but instead of Mount, if we had bought Amrabat and Gravenberch, would have been 50 million for total for 2 players. Well, this is what I said before, Ronald Jacob, and appreciate the contribution, is I don't disagree. I think if you look at people like Mason Mount, and if the reports, and the same with Anthony as well last year too, if you look at all of the reports that said Erik ten Hag he really pushed for those signings, those are the players he wants, then I think it's fair to look at him and say, why did you push so hard for them, really? What did you see? Because we haven't seen it just yet. I think also you can give Erik ten Hag the benefit of the doubt in an aspect of, again, look how this club is being run at the moment. Yeah, and I'm sure he was told or maybe promised, oh, we're going to move these players on and then we'll get these other targets in. So that's where I do sympathise. And as Sho Rahman said earlier on, it's the same old story. How many times have we seen this? How many times have we had windows like this where starts of the season like this, where we look around and go, like, in the market, what are we doing? Like, again, like, the players we bought aren't available, or the other one, the only one that is available right now come January isn't most likely going to be available. I think it's fair to look at Ten Hag and say a couple of the people that you've really pushed for aren't working out. And I mean, the Mason Mount one, look, he still only played 2 games, and I know people will say, oh, I've seen enough and all that kind of stuff. We'll see how that one plays out. I do agree with you. The way you look at the market is you could have got Amrabat and could have got Gravenberch as well for that combined fee. I think that's fair, but yeah, I think everyone has to take accountability when it comes to this. Honestly, everyone does, because again, it's a mess, an absolute mess at United at the moment. And you might say, oh, you're being melodramatic, oh, you're being reactionary, but the window, which at one point did look promising, has just taken such a nosedive really quickly. It's just, it beggars belief what's happened in the last couple of weeks with players not being sold, players not being signed, and just one of those situations again whereby it feels like United stand still and all of the other clubs move on. I mean, we were chatting a couple of weeks ago, when was it, last week, 10 days ago, like Benjamin Pavard was near enough a certainty. United have chosen Pavard. Remember all of the Romano tweets? Once United have decided who the replacement is going to be for Harry Maguire, they'll go in. And Pavard's, there's all of those reports about Ten Hag chatting to Pavard. Ten Hag selected Pavard. We're doing stuff of going, where's he going to fit into the system? He's going into Milan now. Why? Well, he couldn't get rid of Harry Maguire, so it's just kind of over. So that's not happening. That's why yesterday when L'Equipe said, oh, United are closing in on Todibo. We're not closing in on Todibo. I'd be staggered. I'd be actually a bit furious if we signed Todibo at this point, because reportedly he cost 40 million euros, and we can't get enough money to get Sophie and Amrabat for 21 million quid. So we're not getting Todibo. That's not happening. So it is one of these windows again, which is such a head scratcher. Honestly, such a head scratcher. I'm going to end that poll now. It's been going for 21 minutes, over 700 votes, and the question was, do you think United sign Amrabat? The answer that the majority have gone for, 54% say yes, 46% say no, but it's close. And I think, again, that goes to sum up the window that United are having at the moment, is that had we put that poll in there even like a week ago, I think it would be way higher for yes than no. But as time goes on, and as nothing really happens all that much, people start to think, Like, are we going to see any movement? Are we going to see something? And we're not even at the stage we were last year, whereby a terrible start to the season's causing United to react or panic because we don't have the money to. I think now what United are probably doing is, even looking at people like Dean Henderson, I think they're looking at, I think some reports are coming out this morning saying that that whole previous thing that they were discussing with Forest of a loan to buy, that's off the table now. When they're talking to Palace, they're like, we need 20 million for him. We need some money. We need some money because we need to get some players. We need to sell Dean Henderson, raise some cash, and get Amrabat, and then possibly a loan out of that. So the moment I see a player leave, because the place we're at the moment with United is that the moment a player leaves, we will get replacements, and we already know that. Obviously, we're getting the goalkeeper from Turkey. It's going to be a lower price. So I think Henderson at this point, Henderson's probably the key. It's Henderson and Donny. They're the two. They're the two that are going to hopefully maybe raise funds. Henderson for like 15, 20 million. Donny for probably about 15 as well. If we get those out the door, then we are going to make new signings. But as far as would I be surprised if they didn't happen? Honestly, not that much, realistically. I am just seeing as well, just before I move on to the final topic, which is about Eric Bailly. I just want to double check this here, because I am seeing some reports this morning that there is hope. This was kind of reported yesterday as well, but there's been more to it today. I'm sure we'll probably find out from Eric Ten Hag tomorrow, actually. Once again, comes from the Sun, so take it with a pinch of salt. But Manchester United reportedly are hopeful that Rasmus Højlund will be fit enough to be on the bench against Nottingham Forest on Saturday, which would be obviously ideal. That would be ideal because that the match against Arsenal had always been the sort of point which United had hoped he was going to be making his debut, and I kind of was a bit worried about that because if he can come off the bench against Forest 15 minutes towards the end just to get some minutes, then you're talking about a possibility of him maybe starting. And I know it's the Emirates, it's away, they finished second last season, obviously they're very good, and do we really want to put that pressure on him? But my hope is just the difference of having a striker start, or heck, if Anthony Martial is still fit by that point, maybe even Martial starts against Forest at the weekend. He played in the week. He played yesterday against Burnley. Or even if he starts at the Emirates and he can only do 45 minutes, then you can bring Højlund on and you don't have to have Marcus Rashford through the middle. You can have him on the left. Just having those striker options is so key. So I hope that is true. We'll have the press conference reaction tomorrow, and obviously I'm sure he'll be asked about that during the press conference, so it'll be interesting to see certainly what he says. Let me enter this poll here in the chat at the moment. I believe we've got a members chat here as well. Harold's been a member for 5 months. I appreciate 5 months of support from Harold. Says, are people already writing off Mount after 2 games? Like, seriously? Or people just looking for a scapegoat? Well, as I said, Harold, I think I'm kind of with you in the sense of I do think it's way too early. And I do think that what United fans are kind of buying into a little bit is some of the noise coming from opposition fans and kind of believing in it. I think people are right to be skeptical, certainly. And like we've said before, if you've already in your mind you go, I wasn't sold on the transfer, it's not looking good, and the first 2 performances, no one's really played that well in the first 2 performances. But I think it's fair to say that him being brought in, and this is my concern about Mason Mount, is I don't see really who he's a replacement in the mold of. So if you look at, like I said, we sold Fred. You want to get a better version of Fred. We haven't really done that. Mason Mount, if you're saying he's replaced Eriksen, he's not Christian Eriksen. He's not as good on the ball as Christian Eriksen is. Last season, Christian Eriksen was dictating games. He was the pass before the pass. He can find those forward passes that other people can't. So my concern is in that system, where does really Mason Mount fit in all of that? Where's the balance involved in all of that? That's the problem, I think. So Ten Hag's got to figure that out, honestly. Ten Hag's got to figure out what he's going to do with that too. Finally, Eric Bailly, as I mentioned, he's available for a free transfer. Obviously, he was going to be going to Saudi Arabia, to Al Nassr, but that's not happening because Aymeric Laporte is gone there instead. So now we're just waiting for anyone to pick up Eric Bailly. As I spoke about earlier, he's on a contract that's 80k a week. So we're not going to make any money in terms of transfer fees or anything like that. But having him off the wage bill would certainly be nice, wouldn't it? But I don't know if you've heard or seen anything from my research. At one point, I think he turned down a move going to Besiktas in Turkey. So maybe now we keep pushing out there. He's available on a free. But like these other players that we spoke about this morning as well, still really difficult to move him on. Really difficult to move him on because of the big wages and not a lot of interested parties, which is incredibly disappointing, certainly. Let me just double check if I'm caught up with all of these super chats. I am indeed. How many likes are we currently on as well before I wrap things up? We've still got over 1,400 people watching. Less than 400 likes. We're about 27 likes away. So if you haven't already, click the like button too. SK says, some rewriting of history. Also, Erik ten Hag also wanted Kim Min-jae and Kane. Rabiot. Onana Mount came later on when the club fumbled. Well, I think Onana certainly was a choice that Ten Hag wanted. I'm not sure that's rewriting history. And with the Mount one, I don't know. Was he Ten Hag's first choice? I mean, there was the way that I understood it was Mount and Rabiot, because remember Rabiot was going to be a free transfer. Because his contract was expiring and he ultimately decided to stay. So I think that it was going to be Mount and Rabiot involved, because again, Rabiot was a free transfer. He definitely, well, the Kim Min-jae one was weird for a player that we were definitely getting, and then we just didn't get. He definitely wanted Harry Kane though as well. I totally agree with that. I totally agree. But there you go, guys. That's the show for today. Stay tuned because plenty more content is on the horizon. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. And you never know, if there's any more transfer news, we'll be here to chat about it. I'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.